This meeting to order. If everyone please take their seats. So since it's a joint meeting, we're going to kind of tag team this up here. And let Sharon worked hard on the budget with all the meetings, so we're going to let her handle the budgets, and then I'll do the resolution. Teamwork makes the dream work, right?
That's right.
At least I got you to laugh, Linda. First order of business is the approval of the August 29th minutes for finance and executive. Mr. Rosenbaum, Ms. Blair, any questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Ayes have it. Sharon?
Okay, we're moving on to the budget. Scott?
Madam Chair, you want to get a motion on the floor for the gray and purple pages?
Motion on the floor to Betty, second. Danny, Bailey?
All right. Thanks, Madam Chair. So a quick slide deck to run through. I know most all of you have seen portions of this slide deck, but I think maybe for the benefit of the live stream audience, we'll run through these, but we'll do it quickly and efficiently. Just point out, I did in a couple other meetings, committee meetings yesterday and today. Cedar Hills Drive is the cover photo this year on the budget book. This picture was taken from Member Elsesser's district, looking at Member Ricker's district, which may be why Member Elsesser made the comment he did earlier today. So across all funds, the recommended budget is $150.6 million in sources or revenues. That's where the money comes from. And $154.9 million in uses or expenditures, and that's where the money goes. A little bit about property taxes real quick. Recommended rate of 82.41 cents per $100 of equalized assessed value. If you apply that rate, which is the rate that the board has had a long-standing tradition of keeping it flat at, apply that to all taxable parcels, and we have a levy of a little over 31.14 million. That is an increase over the property taxes that we all paid our second installment of earlier this fall, and is due to a 6.7% increase in property values across the entire county after the quadrennial reassessment. How are those 82.41 pennies divided? That's what the pie chart represents. And the blue and gray wedges represent our operating budgets that have property tax levies in them. The yellow and the tan represent our pension-related budgets that have a property tax levy associated with them. What's not shown is a debt service levy. That's because we're not levying in the debt service levy this year because we have alternate revenue sources to cover those obligations. That's a resolution later on the agenda. Just to point out, the Headington Oaks levy is an operating budget and an operating levy, but we obviously take those dollars and use them to pay off the bonds make this year's bond payment for Headington Oaks. We're recommending the full 6 pennies, which is the maximum that we can pursue, and provided this board and future boards continue to levy the maximum, you'll have a substantial nest egg available to you in 2032 when those bonds are callable again. You might be able to pay them off in full. You'll definitely be able to make a pretty substantial dent in the remaining principal. So that board at that point in time, 9 years from now, will be able to hopefully have a nice nest egg and make that decision. As it relates to the Finance Committee, what you have oversight of 3 different departments, and it's $6.5 million in revenues and $6.2 million in expenditures. The executive committee has oversight of several more budgets, but it totals $47.5 million in revenue and $19.5 million in expenditures. Obviously, general county is the biggest revenue source. That's where the general funds, property taxes, income taxes, sales taxes, personal property replacement tax all get deposited and accounted for. As it relates to how the budget is divided up by committee, Finance Committee has 4% of the revenues and 4% of the expenditures. Executive Committee has 32% of the entire organization's revenues and 13% of the expenditures. We do also provide a high-level summary of the general fund being almost a third or a little bit more than a third of the entire spend of the organization. You can see it's balanced, revenues to expenses at 56.77 million. Again, intergovernmental revenues are the largest revenue source, and our largest and greatest asset, our workforce, is the largest expense. Finance Committee has oversight of, I believe it's 0% of the revenues and a very small sliver of like 1% of the expenditures, where the Public Safety and Justice Committee has a significant chunk of the expense. Most of those expenses are paid for the revenues that the Executive Committee has oversight of, and that's 2/3 of the general fund of revenues are under the purview of this committee, and then 18% of the expenditures are. Last slide for me, and then I'm gonna turn the rest of the slide deck over to Heather to walk through. This shows what we call our general fund balancing for the future chart. The large navy blue area represents fund balance over time. The yellow or golden line represents your written financial policies of having 24% reserves on hand. The blue dashed line is your unwritten comfort level of having 30% of reserves in hand. When we first created this chart back in 2015 or 2016, we were supposed to be we're supposed to not only be below policy, but out of reserves in the general fund by this point. Through the actions of these two committees and the board, that obviously is not the case. We've also then been buoyed by the economic activity post-COVID, where we've been able to build up some of those reserves over the time, such that the fund is going to continue to be healthy well into the next decade. So I'm going to stop talking now, and then we'll give the rest of the slide deck to Heather.
Thank you. This slide covers our property tax rate, which, as Scott mentioned, remains at the 82.41 cents. Some notable changes are we had a 2.3% or 2.3 cent increase in the risk management fund. These changes were intentional to maintain a healthy fund balance and risk management, and then we had a 1.17 cent decrease in the IMRF fund due to the reduced employer rate. And then a 2.6 overall decrease in the pension funds, but our pensions are still healthy and fully funded. The EAV growth, there is an estimate of 6.7%, which equals 1.9 million in additional property tax revenue, while still keeping that rate flat. We'll go over some personnel-related changes. We did mention these in county ops, but for everyone's benefit, we'll go through in PCAPS. We had a 2.0 full-time employee increase. There was a mid-year addition of an animal control officer, and then just this afternoon, the board approved another increase for one full-time staff member to work in the mobile services unit, which is going to go into a service hopefully yet this fall. County admin, it was a 0.25 FTE increase, just a shift in how current employees are allocated. Facilities and grounds have requested 2 FTE additional, 1 at the courthouse and 1 at the county jail. Planning and zoning is working on a succession planning, and that results in a 0.6 FTE increase for a part-time plumbing inspector for next year. And then sustainability and resource, it's a 1.0 FTE increase, and it's more of a combination of 2 employees that were in place pre-COVID, but just 1 FTE increase this year. For boards, commissions, and agencies, the ETSB has a 1 FTE increase. This is to overlap slightly for an anticipated retirement, so it should net out next year. And then the health department got an increase in a grant, a breastfeeding grant, so they were able to give an existing employee additional hours for the 0.2 FTE increase. For electeds, we have some realignment of staff position structure in the county coroner's office to help reduce overtime. So that ended in a net of a 0.5 FTE increase. The sheriff's office had, it's a strange number, 1.9 FTE, but it's a combination of 2 FTE for a GPACT funded grant. It's the Greater Peoria Auto Crimes Task Force grant, and we have 2 fully funded officers in the sheriff's office. We have 1 position that was reinstated that was held inactive last year for a training lieutenant, and the balance is a net reduction in vacancies for correctional officers. And then in the state's attorney's office, they also received 1 fully funded position for the GPACT grant. Judicial, they have a request for 1 FTE for an assistant probation officer, and then the rest is reallocation of staff. And then the public defender's office, they are requesting 1 FTE, an assistant public defender, and 1 paralegal. And Kevin discussed how he was trying to shift from the contractors to full-time staff. And then for health insurance, the premiums increases are reflected based on what our actuarial group provided to us. Okay, ARPA. Policy initiatives, the first one is ARPA, and there's additional slides after this, so I'll touch on those in the next couple of slides. For economic development, this year we have 2 3-year commitments. One is for G-Beta. It's a partnership with OSF Healthcare, Distillery Labs, and some other community partners. And this is year 1 of our second 3-year commitment. And then the second one is our final year commitment of a 3-year investment in the Central Illinois Living Laboratory. And then obviously the HHS campus, we budgeted for this in fiscal 23, but obviously the campus will not be completed until fiscal 24. And so I just wanted to note that any allocated funds that were budgeted in 23 will roll forward so that we can pay them in 24. This is what we have recommended in the different categories eligible for our ARPA funds. I want to note there's a column after the 2023 budget that shows project savings or differential. So those funds were budgeted in 23 but will be available to spend in 24 because they are related to projects that were either not yet started or completed in 23 that will roll forward, or projects that came in under budget and we had some savings that we can reallocate to other funds, such as the jail and JDC roofs came in under what we had anticipated, and as well as mechanical boiler and chiller out at JDC. The revenues, I just want to point out the significant change, because in 23 we had requested a significant amount, mainly for the health campus and some other projects that we had. And so that just shows the reduction in that. But we recognize revenue as we expend it. And so those numbers will likely change as some of the funds are shifted from fiscal 23 to 24. These are in your budget book, pages exec 42 through 45, if you want greater detail. Essentially, it lines out what our initiatives are, which I think may be on the next slide. No, just kidding. I'll go through them real quickly. They're also in the narrative in the budget book. And 24 specific projects that are recommended are 1.2 million for broadband, 400,000 for small business initiatives, 3.5 million for the fleet garage, underground storage tank, and salt dome, plus 464,000 that'll be rolled forward that were budgeted this year for those projects into next year. The capital projects manager, Mr. Eunice, courthouse order of protection and treasurer's office remodel for 520,000, and then there's about $2.6 million remaining in contingency funds for the board to designate different projects that they want completed. Just a reminder, we budgeted every last dollar of the 34.8 million that we were allocated for ARPA in fiscal 24 because it has to be designated in fiscal 24 and then expended by the end of fiscal 26. So I just want to make sure we all have that in mind. Next slide, thank you. And then finally, this graph just shows the EAV history over the past 15 years and how it has changed across the county. We've had 2 3-year segments where it was a negative EAV, and then obviously this year the estimate is at 6.7%.
Right, so, Madam Chair, before I turn it back over to you, just a word of acknowledgement and thanks to all the offices and departments that helped get us to this point this year. There aren't many left sitting in the room, but all of them played a significant role in that. And also, thanks to Heather and the finance team in terms of pulling everything together. It was a pretty heavy lift in a pretty short amount of time with new software and a new process for us. And then for those board members that participated in the departmental meeting process this year, from my perspective, you all were value add. You asked really good questions, and that's a process that we started a couple years ago, and I think it's working very well, and look forward to having that continue into the future. We are happy to answer any question you might have about the budget.
Okay, we'll be taking questions. Any questions? Linda?
Yes, I had 2 questions. One, I just asked the coroner before he left about his budget, which is public safety and justice, page 34. And I asked him, what is this capital expense of $51,302 that was not in last year's budget, and it wasn't in the revised, or it's in the revised, but not in the projected. And he said that it was a car, and that normally you purchase cars through some system. I'm not sure, I don't know what that is, but that he couldn't do that. So that's what it is.
Do you want me to take? Okay. So yes, typically I believe there is a cycle for fleet management where it's similar to the IT computer cycle where every 4 years they cycle it out. And if you're on the rotation for that year, then you would receive a replacement vehicle. This one was not up for replacement at the time on the schedule. And so there was a budget request made, a transfer request made within the coroner's budget to shift funds from one line item to this one so that the vehicle could be purchased.
Okay, and then I have another question, which is also public safety 138, and that is the emergency phone system. and why their commodities would go from 285,000 to 1 million, and then back to 345,000, and then for next year, 1 million again.
Let's see. Commodities.
It's on 138. It's uses, commodities and supplies.
Yes, I see it. I'm trying to remember what specifically this is for. I thought that it had to do with the radio repayment. That's in contractual. It's related to the Stark County project and the grant and how the funds are recognized when received and expended.
Okay, so I don't quite understand. Does that mean we're getting funding in for the Stark County project? This is not coming from our taxpayers?
Right, it's a reimbursement from the state of Illinois.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Additional questions? Steve?
I'll make it more as a comment for awareness. So in our executive budget on page 13, we have a transfer to JDC for 1.5 million. And obviously you have the same on page 133 of Public Safety and Justice. You have the receipt of that 1.5 million. And it's more of a transparency that we as a county have a due diligence to run a JDC. We could either have a choice either to run our own JDC as we do, or outsource that to other counties and move our residents that you need the JDC and pay someone else to do it. So it's a county expense. It's currently it's coming out of our taxpayers' funds of 1.5 million, and then AIOC pays the rest of it. That's my understanding. I'd ask Mr. Sorrell maybe to put any additional explanation around that.
So on the revenue side, for as it relates to the Juvenile Detention Center, a significant portion of the funding does, yes, come from the state of Illinois through the Administrative Office of the Courts. But there's also a $0.015 property tax levy that is included in that 84 penny total that will be before you later on in the agenda. That is absent going to the voters. That's the maximum that you can levy for juvenile detention services at this point in time. That generates, roughly a little bit more than $500,000 in revenue. The revenue from the state, comes in at $2.75 million or thereabouts, and then we do receive via contract for services from other counties that we house their juveniles a certain price per bed day. And as an example, we have a contract with Macon County, that's Decatur, for I believe it's 6 beds. And it's whether they use the 6 beds or not, they pay for 6 beds. If they're using more than 6 beds, then they pay, additionally beyond that. And then there are other counties, including Tazewell, that also pay. But the majority of that income comes from Macon County. If you add all those things up, the operations of the Juvenile Detention Center are still about $1.5 million, hence the transfer from the general fund. Expenses are $1.5 million more than what those revenues are. The general fund transfer has been a part of this budget for as long as I can remember, and has varied over the course of time. It's been as low as let's say in the last 20 years, it's been, as low as $700,000 or $800,000, but it's been as high as almost 1.8 or 1.9. The previous chairman had a work group with the state's attorney, the public defender, the chief judge, the superintendent of the juvenile detention center, and worked very hard to come up with a process and a plan for how we can manage the juvenile detention center population appropriately. Some of their staffing requirements are driven by, obviously, the population that's in the facility. We have 3 pods. Each pod is 21 beds in size, and staffing levels are significantly different than they are for the jail on the other side of the parking lot. But that means, as a result, that we do have increased costs for staffing, and hence the reason why we need the general fund transfer to pay for that difference. What that means long term, though, is what can we do? Can we be more entrepreneurial in trying to attract? Because not every county has a JDC. There's only, I believe, 18 or 19 counties with a juvenile detention center statewide, and realistically, if ours would be closed, in terms of the number of juveniles that we would place in detention, we're probably looking at Will County as the closest one that's large enough to accommodate us, or perhaps Winnebago County. Both several hours drive one way, which again adds to additional costs. You could, so. I believe that the work group under Chairman Rand put in place a good plan. It's about maintaining what that transfer is and making sure it doesn't get worse, which is what we've been doing despite the increased wage costs that we're seeing, and working hard on managing the population of the JDC. Hopefully that gets you where you needed to go, Mr. Ricker.
Additional questions? Oh, you have any?
Heather, just on that last chart that was added, and maybe this is more of a Dave Ryan, but is 6.7 the largest EAV increase the county's seen in modern times? It looked like through
In
at
the
least
last
2009. But there's no record going back of seeing higher than that?
Hold on, I'll bring up the spreadsheet because I was just looking at it.
There's a record.
Okay, Scott would probably know better than I.
Yeah, stand by. I'm opening up the spreadsheet. Let's see here. EAV. No, it is not. For tax year 1998, for taxes payable in 99, which is the furthest back our data goes, it was a 7.7% increase. Tax years 2007, payable in 2008, it was 7.92%. Oh, and I'm sorry, I missed another large one. Tax year 99, payable in 2000, was 6.9%. So, we've got, it's near record levels, but since in the last 23 years, it's not the largest, it's the fourth.
Any more questions? No? Okay, we'll call the vote. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any nays? Okay, thank you.
Well, congratulations to the new members for making it through your first budget season. Which, Scott, did you just want to
Yes.
quickly update about next year?
I'm sorry?
Or, so typically the last year was one of the first years we did it in October. Tried to get in December, November, it had been in December, but did you want to touch on where next year
Sure.
basis will be?
Happy to do that, Mr. Chairman. So next year, I think we're going to We're going to try and start the process about the same time, but maybe a little bit later. And we're going to probably plan to have the adoption at the November board meeting versus the October board meeting. There's a couple things that really are going to drive that thought process for us. Number one, County Operations Committee has already started working on it, but we'll be procuring all of our health insurance related contracts next year, and that's a significant cost driver for the budget. And so we want to make sure that we're working in concert and not against from a timing standpoint of what health insurance is going to look like. Additionally, many of our large revenue streams are lagging. For example, sales tax. You'll hear in the financial report that it's the end of September, and I think we only have July sales taxes. So but the budget book probably only has May or June worth of those lagging indicators. So we're going to we want to try and get another month of those lagging indicators that are significant revenues for us as we continue to look at the budget going forward. So that's kind of our process that we've already started to think about next year. We also have some process improvements that we're going to implement or push out to the departments and offices as well.
Questions? Just wanted to make sure that was understood.
Mr. Chairman, I'll put in the weekly update, but for the benefit of you and the committee, just a reminder that any board member that wants to initiate an amendment of the budget at this point, now that the committee's approved the recommended budget, you need to do so in writing. You need to submit it ideally electronically to Vice Chairwoman Williams and myself, and the deadline to do that is 6 o'clock on Monday, October 9th. So if nothing's been received by then the budget proceeds as it was adopted by this committee today. We do know, based on a settlement of a collective bargaining agreement last week, that there will be one floor amendment coming to implement that collective bargaining agreement that will be coming from County Operations Committee. We talked about that in Mr. Ricker's committee today, so we're already aware of that one. So Steve, you don't need to send anything because we're aware of it. But if anybody else, if you want to make a change, that is the process with which you can do so.
And for the newer members, and there's probably only a few of us that would still remember, that rule was instituted due to the fact a lot of work goes into this budget, and there would be a bunch of floor amendments, and things would get a little messy, especially when a lot of them were known coming forward. So this way, it can all be prepared before the meeting and the numbers delivered. So that is why that amendment or rule is in place. Next is informational items. We'll move and receive and file all of them, but we do have Mr. Allen giving a presentation for a DEI.
Good afternoon, Executive Committee. Thank you so much for having our DEI unit in front of you today. Myself as your Chief Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Officer, and Brittany Graves as your Human Resources DEI Journalist. Last time we came before you all, we presented our 4x4 relay DEI plan with the goal of letting you know that will be our North Star as we look to advance this work throughout Peoria County. Scott, I believe that the clicker is the...
Just tell me when you want to advance it, I'll do it.
So Peoria County acknowledges the significance of diversity, equity, and inclusion in fostering an inclusive workplace in our community. As mentioned, our 4x4 Relay DEI plan serves as our North Star as we advance this work for our organization. Using the tracking core metaphor, it is stated in four legs: talent, attraction, and retention, professional training and development, procurement for minority and women owned businesses, and engagement with our external stakeholders. Before we proceed, I do want to apologize. There was a typo in the slide in the packet that you all received. It was entitled the 4x4 Delay DEI plan. And I do want to promise you this work is not delayed, it is moving forward. So appreciate a couple of you who had caught that. And I do apologize about that typo. Now, for the rest of the presentation, we will provide an overview and a summary of the various efforts that we've been doing in quarters 2 and 3 of this year, beginning with leg 1, which is led by our human resource DEI journalist, Brittany Graves.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. So the last time we presented to you all, we just expressed that our efforts are to make Peoria County government as diverse as the community that it serves. So in some efforts to do that, I've attended some career fairs. I attended the Speak Out Illinois Career Fair as well as the Goodwill Career Fair. Actually, this Thursday, I'll be attending Bradley University's Fall Career Fair. And then next month, we will be attending ISU and ICC career fairs as well. The last time that we presented to you all, we stated that we were meeting with all the individual departments of Peoria County government. Since then, we've met with 13 departments so far. In those meetings, we learned a little bit more about their perspective or their respective, functions and recruitment practices, and then ways that we could help collaborate in the future. In those meetings, each department was given the 3 years of the Equal Employment Opportunity Report, EEO report, and that was just to establish a baseline for diverse hiring in the future. And then at the end of those meetings, every department was given a survey. That survey was just to collect some more data and feedback that they didn't give to us in the meeting that maybe they didn't share. And then after we received those results, we met with our HR department. We sat down with Shauna, assistant administrator, and Angela, director of HR. And we just discussed those results from the survey. One of the main barriers across the board was wages and benefits, which wasn't really a surprise to them. They were aware, but we thought that it was worth mentioning because that was the standard across the board. But in the future, we always sit down with human resource and want to make sure that we're collaborating with them when it comes to any data that we collect or new ideas before rolling out anything. We want to be on the same page with them as well. And then we will continue meeting with our internal departments. We have a few more we need to meet with, but that will continue. And then addition to meeting with the internal departments, we made an effort to initiate external stakeholder engagement. So we met with key not-for-profit organizations in our community, such as PCCEO, the Neighborhood House, and George Washington Carver Center. I'll talk about that a little more when we talk about the fourth leg of our plan. Some goals that we've set, again, is to initiate regular meetings with our external and internal stakeholders, just to build relationships and share information. Secondly, we want to work along with our human resource department to formulate a tracking and measurement strategy so we can assess our impact, so we can know that if what we're doing is working, and if not, tweak it. And then lastly, we would like to establish some employee resource groups to enhance retention, spotlight the existing diversity within our county and foster a sense of belonging for our current employees. As of right now, we're collaborating with Team Peoria, which is the resource group in place currently, and we will roll out some DEI related activities through Team Peoria first before creating any additional ERG groups.
Thank you, Brittany. As we proceed now to leg two, this is our professional development and training leg. This is a leg that we are eager to participate in as we provide professional development and training opportunity to our internal departments within Peoria County government, but then also external groups within the community. And we'll elaborate a little bit on those on the next couple of slides. Here are some of the external opportunities that we have provided professional development and training within the DEI space in quarters 2 and 3. Quest Academy School. We presented to 85 attendees on a presentation entitled Embracing Differences and Creating an Inclusive Academic Environment. We proceeded to repeat that presentation for Illini Bluff School District 327, and there was 30 attendees presented there, including their superintendent and additional professional staff. And in the village of Martinville, we provided a presentation to them entitled Building Roads to Inclusion, How to Reduce Bias and Enhance Belonging in Our Local Municipalities. And there was 20 attendees, including their mayor, a few of their town trustees, and other professional staff. Internally, these are some presentations and trainings that we've done to our internal departments within Peoria County government. The Juvenile Detention Center, we did a presentation entitled Embracing Differences and Creating an Inclusive Workplace Culture. We have 45 attendees attend 3 different presentations. We had members from all 3 of their shifts attend first, second, and third shift. The Peoria City County Health Department, that presentation was entitled Culturally Competent Health, Improving Outcomes for All. There was 50 attendees reflecting the entire range of employees that are within our Peoria City County Health Department. And then lastly, Probation and Court Services. That presentation was entitled Fostering a Sense of Belonging and Advancing DEI Practices within Probation and Court Services, and we had 30 attendees there. After each of the presentations, we do administer a survey to get feedback, and then from there we look to utilize that information to improve any training opportunities in the future, and then also follow up with the different entities to see how we can continue to support them as they move along their DEI journey. Here's a current list of professional development and training offerings that we do have in our toolkit. I won't name all of them just for the sake of time, but these also will be published on our website. And if you haven't had a chance yet, and we appreciate Gretchen, our Director of Marketing, for helping us there, our landing page is published on the Peoria County's website. And we have a link on there. If they would like to solicit us for a training opportunity, they can do that. And I will have these various trainings listed along with their descriptions on our website shortly for both internal and external engagement opportunities. Some future goals that we have: maintain the promotion of professional development and training for both internal and external stakeholders. And then I would like to see us establish a regular and internal roundtable series that we can utilize to have some meaningful dialogue within this inclusion and belonging space, such as lunch and learns, bringing in keynote speakers, but really take this from more of a training aspect to more of an action aspect moving forward. Leg 3, this is our minority and women-owned business procurement leg. Our goal in this is to create opportunities for our minority and women-owned business partners in the community, looking to increase our workforce diversity and fostering economic development. When we talk about addressing a lot of societal issues in our county, if we can address the economic landscape, we can drastically improve those. Here are some things that I personally have been doing in this space. Many of you know Gabe Jaja from Human Capital Development. Him and I have had countless conversations about how do we improve this space of minority and women-owned business procurement processes. We are looking at things including reviewing our current procurement process and strategies of how we can share that with different entities who want to do business with Peoria County government. One of our huge projects right now is the Peoria City County Health Department campus Myself, along with Gabe, have been collaborating with River City Construction as they are defining the workforce plan for this legacy project that will be in our county. Right now, we are working actively with those contractors and the different subcontractors to ensure they meet their minority and women-owned participation goals, specifically when it comes to workforce. We're at the early stage of that project now, but so far so good. The projections are aligning with our published workforce goals, and so we'll continue to monitor this and we'll provide updates as we continue to keep building out that new campus. You may be familiar with recent legislation from the General Assembly, and this is entitled HB 453. This is legislation that requires any taxing bodies that receive taxes for over $5 million to now disclose their different vendors and diverse spending habits. And so myself and Gabe, we collaborate with Jim Smith in finance, who provides us our purchase order reports monthly, and we file those on our Peoria County website under the finance tab. And so that allows us to be in compliance with this legislation, and we'll continue to do this moving forward. Some future goals that we have within the minority and women-owned business space: establish an accurate baseline for minority and women-owned businesses within our internal Munis database. Currently, right now, there's some opportunities to improve that, and so myself and Jim and Heather have talked about that. To make sure that we have a true, accurate reflection, and that may include having vendors um, do brand new W-9 forms and just really do some intentional outreach to ensure that our database is accurate. Collaborate with internal departments to establish a commitment to peculiar goals for our MIMBY and WIMBY vendors. Really just collaborating with them and sharing why this is important. And then again, create an outreach strategy to create awareness and participation for different entities that want to do business with Peoria County government. So now we're at leg 4, and this is our external stakeholder engagement leg. This is a leg that we really are passionate about. A lot of times when I interact with people from Peoria County, when they see the seal, sometimes they just think of the courts or the jail. And we're really trying to change that perception that Peoria County is an opportunity for you to potentially not only work here, but also the county can work for you. There's so many different resources that exist within Peoria County government. And so you utilize an intentional external stakeholder engagement, we can change that perception.
Okay, so as I mentioned before, we reached out to our external stakeholders. One of our partners that we reached out to first was the Neighborhood House of Peoria. We actually met with CEO Julie Bonner, COO Brenna Ryan, and Kara Damaswick. I hope I pronounced her name right. But we sat down, we gave them, showed them a little bit of our plan. They were excited to collaborate with us. They stated that they would post our jobs. They offered for us to attend their food pantry and set up a table and have descriptions of what is currently available in the county, and we can explain those particular positions more in detail. And then also the COO, Brenna Ryan, she was excited about our training opportunities. So they want to take advantage of our resource to come out and give their employees some training as well. And then we met with the administrative staff for George Washington Carver Center. We sat down with CEO Jacoby Proctor, the executive assistant Jasmine Jones, and Donna Crowder. They were also excited to hear about our plan. They wanted us to come out and kind of do like mock interviews or answer any questions that their parents that are qualified for our positions but are sometimes hesitant about applying. So kind of make it more comfortable for them, let them know exactly how to apply online, and like I said, do mock interviews so that they're prepared if they are chosen for being hired. And then lastly, we met with the Peoria Citizens Committee for Economic Opportunity, PCCEO. We met with CEO Babalola. He expressed us his plan for the PCCEO, wanting to branch out into more rural areas such as Chillicothe, Bartonville, and Bellevue. So he's explained that to us, and he also was willing to again post our job positions and have us work with his community as well. So that buy-in was great, and our interaction with them was well. And in addition to the external stakeholders, we attended some community events. So we attended Juneteenth. We had members from the sheriff's office, regional office of education, the election commission, member coach. She came out and worked the table with us. So that was just an opportunity for us to be in the county, have a presence. Like Andre said, they kind of see the county seal and think it's either I got to pay a ticket or I'm going to court. So let them know that we're here. We have opportunities for employment, and we want to help any way we can. We also attended Pride Fest, River City Pride Fest. That day was very hot, but we had a good time. We had members from, again, the Regional Office of Education, JDC came out. They were huge in handing out their information. They had swag that they passed out. People were coming up at the table wanting to speak with them. The election commission was there as well. We also had member Coates again, member Renew. So we had a good time. We appreciate you guys donating your time and spending the day with us. And then Andre and I also, we didn't participate in the ADA WOW celebration, but we were present. And so we got to see some new technology that CityLink was putting into their buses that were allowing individuals that needed wheelchairs to make it easier for them to load and get off the bus. So that was really cool. We also connected with other organizations there, collected a lot of cards, plan to connect with them in the future.
And I would also say, before I move on to this part, if you all have any organizations within your respective districts that you would like us to engage with, please reach out. We will collaborate and connect with them. We also provide support to the City County Joint Commission on Racial Justice and Equity. Myself and Brittany, we have split the different committees up in that we support them. We attend their meetings. We will take minutes. We will provide resources to ensure that the committees are successful. An example of something that Brittany is doing right now for our Economic Development and Jobs Subcommittee is right now they are conducting interviews with minority women-owned businesses throughout Peoria County to address any common barriers or opportunities for success and to grow their scale and to improve the economic climate for those business owners. So far, she's done interviews with the following that are listed there, including AFE Construction and Studio C Fitness. And then lastly, what I would like to touch on, and we will provide more of a detailed report to the Health and Human Services Committee in October, but I am a member along with County Administrator Sorrell, a part of the Social Determinants of Health Accelerator Plan. In 2022, the City County Health Department secured a grant from the CDC to build upon health initiatives to address social determinants of health. When you think of social determinants of health, these are things that help that hinder your everyday life and impact your health outcomes. The two focus points of our grant are looking at the built environment and social connectiveness. When you think of the built environment, think of things that you can touch, sidewalks, streets, bike lanes, bus stops, things that help you get around in your day to day. But if you do not have adequate built environment around you, can impact your life income. So, for example, if you're not able to safely get to your son or daughter's school, you're not going to utilize the sidewalk, which means that you're not going to get that daily exercise that you're looking for. And then social connectedness, this is how we look to improve relationships within our communities. Research shows that those who have meaningful relationships in their lives have better life outcomes, life expectancy. We all know that even pre-pandemic, we didn't talk to our neighbors as much. And then once the pandemic hit, we still have some of our closest friends probably still in that COVID bubble. And so how do we get those out? So what we are doing right now, we have a leadership committee that expands the County of Peoria, City of Peoria, the City County Health Department, Tri-County Regional Planning Committee. We are reviewing a lot of existing plans that have already happened in this space, taking things from each of those, and then we'll be drafting an accelerator plan that we will submit in Q1 of 2024 to the Center for Disease Control, or known as the CDC. I originally was the project lead on that when I started my role, and then once our health and all policies coordinator Christian McKinley was hired in the spring, he has took it and ran with the baton there. But I have stayed an active member, part of that committee, and again, we will provide a more detailed report in October to that committee. Some additional goals, though, that we want to do within our external stakeholder engagement leg is, again, strengthen those connections with county agencies and organizations. So, again, if you have any within your respective districts, please let us know. And then foster organic employee engagement with diverse communities. Our county sees a wide range of people every day coming in for the various services within our government. But we want to make sure that the first time that they interact with someone that they're different from maybe isn't at the front desk, if you will. And so we'll continue to find those organic community engagement opportunities, so that way we're constantly learning and growing and ensuring that we understand the needs of the diverse communities that we serve within Peoria County. So that concludes our DEI overview. I went a little longer than I wanted to, and I know coming off of you all talking about budget, that might have been a little exhausting, but we've got a lot of great things going on right now. Me and Brittany are really excited about this work, and we definitely appreciate your support in this space as we continue to move forward.
Questions from the horseshoe? Andre, I do have one question though, and maybe I missed it in the report. So, and not to be duplicating services that have being done out in the community, but on the EDC work, we've been a substantial investor with a minority business development and Denise Moore from day one, but I don't see how that ties in to the plan or with business development. It looks like we were doing, just so we're not rowing in different directions, because we have been paying them for some of the economic portions of it. So I just want to see how does that fit into the plan?
You know, I think that that's a collaboration opportunity. We haven't connected with Ms. Moore and her center yet, but that could be something that we can make note of and support. What I referenced earlier is what we're doing right now with that Economic and Jobs Subcommittee of the Joint Commission on Racial Justice and Equity. But I believe you're absolutely correct, Chairman Dale. We can definitely collaborate with Ms. Moore, especially since we are investing. And so we'll make note of that. We'll reach out to her and see what we can do to help her efforts.
And I do think it's important to understand what the businesses are expressing, but not to duplicate things also, but the EDC that we're also a substantial investor in is having interviews with businesses. So I'd just like to see those more, that we're not duplicating the services.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And we do have representation from the EDC on that joint commission that was mentioned earlier. I believe Chris Setti actually is a member of that committee. So there is some conversation and collaboration there.
But on the interviews, for the business interviews?
Yeah.
Any other questions? Seeing none. Mr. Renaud.
Sorry about that. My question is, every month in operations, we get a workforce diversity profile. And I guess my first question is, how much work do you think we still have to do? Because it appears that, we're probably underpopulated. And then secondly is I know there's challenges and difficulties in attracting talent. And at one point I brought up the idea of attracting talent, identifying and attracting it at a younger age, and then possibly coming up with a scholarship program so that we might help pay for education in exchange for, whoever we would find would have a job here once they completed their education for a certain amount of time. Have you thought about anything like that?
So to answer your first question, there is opportunity for improvement. And so that's why through our efforts, myself and Brittany, we are trying to lay down the groundwork and plant some seeds so we can see those come to fruition, that people know about our job opportunities a lot sooner. I'll be honest and transparent. Before I started working at the county, I didn't realize the county was this gauntlet of so many different sectors and opportunities, from the sheriff's office all the way to PCAPs and anywhere in between. Many of those job opportunities don't require that 4-year degree. And so someone who maybe college isn't for them, but they want to go into a career, which we can provide with them with a livable wage, great benefits, we just need to do a better job about telling that narrative, especially to those underrepresented communities that myself and Brittany are looking to engage in. When it comes to innovative things of planting that seed earlier and looking at possibly tuition reimbursement or internship opportunities, I think you're right on target with that, you know, and maybe we can consider some type of pilot, if you will, to see what that would look like, and then from there see what a full blown commitment looks like.
Great, and I do know that the regional office of superintendent is interested in helping with that too. If that is something that you want to pursue, that she could help.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything that we can do, especially to keep our young people in the area, I'm all for it.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll move to resolutions. First resolution is the annual authorization for the year-end transfers. Is there a motion? Ms. Duncan? Ms. Blair? Scott, just want to give a brief.
Happy to, Mr. Chairman. So this is a resolution that the committee and the board considers every year. What this does, and it's primarily tied to period 13, but this basically allows, under my authority, which I typically delegate to the CFO, the ability to make year-end transfers. And we're happy to answer any questions about it.
Questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Ayes have it. Next is the abatement of the bond tax levy 2020B, previously 2010F, and 2022, previously 2011 bonds. Is there a motion? Ms. Daly? Mr. Kelch?
Mr. Chairman, as we alluded to earlier, this is a resolution, or I'm sorry, an ordinance that is necessary whenever you have bonds with an alternate revenue source that does not require you to use the debt service levy. There are two bond payments that have alternate revenue sources. The first one is the 2020B as in boy. Those are the refunded and refinanced museum bonds. You have the public facilities sales tax is the alternate revenue source that will have sufficient revenue to make those that bond payment. And then you have the Series 2022 bonds. That is the refunded and refinancing elder care facility or Headington Oaks bonds. The alternate revenue source in this case is the nursing home levy. So you do not need to levy in the debt service levy, and that's what this ordinance achieves.
Questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Ayes have it. Next, approval of the annual tax levy ordinance. Don't all raise your hands at once. Mr. Salzer? Ms. Coates?
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as we alluded to, the rate request is 82.41 cents per $100 of equalized assessed value. You apply that to the taxable property in Peoria County, and that means we have a total levy of $31,342,230. It is an increase of a little bit more than $1.9 million from the current year. If you look at page 92 of your executive committee packet, you will see a table that shows how that 82.41 cents is divided. Just for everyone's benefit, there are many of the funds have a statutory maximum, and you can see that in the rate limit column. The risk management levy, the FICA and IMRF levies, and the debt service levy statutorily have no limit, so you could conceivably levy as much as you want or need in those four funds. And then within the ordinance itself, which starts on page 93 of your packet, it will articulate for you and anyone else that reads it how we're actually going to spend that $31+ million. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Ayes have it. Lastly is the fiscal year 2024 annual appropriation and budget ordinance. Is there a motion? Member Williams, Member Phelan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So if you want to reference the table on page 99 in the packet, which shows by fund all the funds of the entire organization, you'll see that we're expecting to have $109.27 million in reserves starting fiscal year 24. There will be, we expect the $150.62 million in revenues, the $154.9 in expenses, which would leave us with just a shade under $105 million in reserves across all funds when FY24 is complete. That's a planned use of fund balance of $4.27 million. This is, for the new board members, this is the document and the vote that actually grants the spending authority for each of these funds and all of the departments that are in the general fund. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you to everybody for their hard work at getting through that. Next, we'll move to discussion. Chairman Salzer, infrastructure.
Excuse me. We had one resolution, and that was fine. As I told our committee yesterday, because we had to go through our budget and so forth, which we did pass our infrastructure budget. But then last year, that particular committee had 8 resolutions. This year, we only had 1. So we were pleased that we only had to deal with 1 resolution. And this is a resolution dealing with our highway director's Amy McLaren's salary. Each year, we get sent a report by the Illinois Department of Transportation because we have to consider her salary and so forth. I should say every 6 years, because this is the 3rd time that we are acting on hers. And we are rated 10th on our list of state engineers by the Illinois Department of Transportation. And out of the 102 counties, there's all but 3 that that participate in this program with the state, and we certainly want to continue to participate in that program because the state will pay 50% of that salary that they recommend. And the recommended salary for our director of our highway department is $141,200. That's a 2% raise. And I know I question somewhat a 2% raise, but that is a 2% raise for all 6 years. And we did approve that. However, I also gave my own opinion in regards to this because I think we got a great highway engineer, and many engineers just work in an office. But Amy not only, I think, gets along well with the people working in the office, she also does a good job in the field where she goes out on the projects and so forth. And she also gets along well with the workers in the field. And also, she does a lot of work with road commissioners, and most of those seem to be pleased with her work and so forth. I'm lobbying a little bit for Amy, but anyway, we did adopt that resolution to follow the recommendation of the Illinois Department of Transportation, and we are sending this to the board as a resolution to be adopted.
Any questions? Thank you, Chairman Salzer. Next, Chairwoman Duncan, Ways and Means.
Yes, we did have one, for the Ways and Means Committee, we did have one resolution, the monthly delinquent taxes, and with an exception of 140 items, which I believe you will be signing each one.
My hand is worn out. I signed them all yesterday.
Already, good for you. And that's all we had. Thank you.
I think they were happy. They're all done.
Good.
And I didn't miss any, which was pretty good.
Wonderful.
Thank you. Any questions for Chairwoman Duncan? Seeing none, Chairman Rosenbaum, Land Use.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had two resolutions. The first one was a solar facility being built up on Route 150 west of Grand Prairie and east of Kickapoo, and that passed. And the second one was a landowner that is selling the estate, came back. They wanted to add another acre to the 4 acres that they were pulling off the farm, and they're up to 5 acres now, and so that passed unanimously also. And then we had the budget that was approved.
Any questions? Thank you, Chairman Rosenbaum. Next up, Chairman Ricker, County Operations.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. We had 3 resolutions. The first one was from PCAPS for an additional headcount for a new medical services coordinator position. And this position really is there to support the mobile veterinary unit that we approved about a year ago to add. And so that got approved. Our second one was the annual staffing count for the administrative office. So under the administrative department, under Scott, we did have an adjustment this year, an additional 5.85 FTEs. And I will not go through those. Heather went through them earlier in her summary of the additional count. That did get approved. And the last one we had for resolution was the 2024 health insurance premiums and subsidy rates. And we did set new premiums for 2024 and new subsidies for the 3rd year now. We are, as a county, subsidizing some of the premiums for our employees to help offset some of the cost increases. And so that did get reviewed and did get approved. And that the next step on that will be the HR department will roll this out to the employees, and then we go into open enrollment period for the employees to enroll in their health care coverage for 2024. So those were the items we had in operations.
Any questions? Thank you, Chairman Ricker. I know your committee's had quite a bit going on lately. Chairman Renaud, County Health.
We did not have any resolutions.
Easy enough. Chairwoman Allison, Public Safety and Justice.
Also no resolutions.
Okay. So that is all the committee reports. Next, we'll move to public comment, and we have one comment card from Joyce Blumenshine about the CO2 pipeline. She'll have 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Sorry, Chairman Dillon. And just a quick update and a few important dates ahead regarding the high pressure liquefied CO2 pipelines. First, I just think it's important for county board members to know that yesterday at the Land Use Committee, there were 40 individuals who came to attend that meeting regarding the CO2 pipeline. And that may not seem maybe that unusual, but I didn't count. Another individual who was over on this side counted. And I did ask people who were there because of that issue to raise their arm, or some of them had, yes for moratorium on the pipelines. So that's where that count came from. And then the first speaker was the president of the Peoria Farm Bureau. Robert Jansen spoke about the letter that the Farm Bureau wrote with their concerns on this pipeline. I hope you all have seen it. That was sent by Peoria County Farm Bureau to different legislators, to the state, to the county, other governmental agencies. So after Mr. Jansen spoke, I want to thank Chairman Paul Rosenbaum for his decision at that time to adjust the timeline for the speakers to 3 minutes instead of 5. That enabled all the people who had signed up, except one who deferred to others. So 11 people signed up for public comment, 10 gave comments. And another thing I want to mention to you, most all of those people were rural residents. They were from Hannah City, rural areas from Mapleton, and there were a variety of ages and people. So there is a real concern across your county, clearly, about this issue. A couple important dates coming up, and then I'll be done. Citizens Against Predatory Pipelines, a group formed to hire an attorney and file as opposed to the Illinois Commerce Commission proceedings, which are ongoing, for the Wolf Carbon Solutions US LLC to get a state permit to build and operate the pipeline. On October 24th, in that case, all of the expert testimony is due. So we, the opposed people, are actively recruiting, finding experts to talk about some key things for Peoria County, which we think have to be in that record, and that is the situation in the Mapleton and other areas where there are old coal mines, and Landfill Committee knows this really well, undocumented coal mines that can show up at inconvenient times. And comments at public meetings where we've had our outreach. People have said, the landslides around Mapleton, we have cave-ins. We've tried to ask this pipeline company, have they planned for that? Because the pipeline that caused 200 people to get evacuated at Satarsha, Mississippi, 45 sent to hospital, was due to erosion, and the pipeline broke at a weld. So accidents can happen. So we are bringing issues forward in our case at the Commerce Commission pertinent to Peoria County. And we do hope that you will continue to take an interest in this. The other critical dates coming up are at the end of January, when there will be actual hearings. Experts will be before the Illinois Commerce Commission for and against the issue. So I do thank you. We urge the counties watching this and your consideration actions you can really do. Of course, people want a moratorium and then the intervention. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Joyce. Do miscellaneous before we head into executive session. Anything under miscellaneous? Seeing none. Thank you to everybody for their hard work for getting into budget season, another October. We will be heading into executive session for labor relations and probable litigation.